We will get started in just a little bit. Glad to have you here. All right, we will get started in just a little bit. Glad you're here. All right, I'm going to see if I can pause this music and we will get going on this live stream. It's great to have all of you here. Looks like we have a good sized audience gathered already, although not many people jumping into the chat yet. I'm hoping that you will feel comfortable to do that. It looks like Susie's already made some great introductions, welcoming to folks. So we've got a unique, if I get out of the way, we've got a unique opportunity today to introduce a very special group out of La Follette, Tennessee. And the special group, let me see if I can get into the shot. I don't know if I'll be able to see myself on the laptop. I'm going to try to. All right, there I am. I've got to get on my knees in order to be seen because of the distance from there. So it's always exciting to meet a new group of individuals. So Susie and I traveled into Middlesboro to meet these folks. They pulled up in a really, really cool SUV with a big screen in the front. That's part of the equipment on this vehicle. It's some sort of I think it was a Ford maybe. But they started to pile out almost like a group of people that squeezed into a VW, and they're all of a sudden going to roll out and introduce themselves. And they're from a special group over, like I said, in La Follette, Tennessee, called the Senior Citizens of Campbell County. And they heard about the work that I do. They found us on the internet, specifically their director, I believe it was, Patricia. And they said, this is the guy that needs to get our machines working again. They were both jammed up. The balance wheels wouldn't turn. They've been worked really hard. These ladies use these machines all the way through the pandemic to sew over 2,000 masks and other protective stuff to try to keep people safe. And they're called the Helping Hands Group. So they're always willing to step out there and use their sewing machines to try to help folks make quilts, lap quilts, masks to protect senior citizens when they're out and about at Walmart and other places like that. And they had 2 of their machines that went down completely, the ones behind me right here. And I took a lot of progress photos that I share with Patricia to show the steps that I took these machines through to get them back working again. When they dropped them off and Beverly and Mary said, "These are our machines," they weren't sure if I could get them fixed again and get them working because, again, they were just totally jammed up and they wouldn't turn. I found a lot of issues with them, but all those issues are resolved now. So it's going to be fun to show these machines off. And Beverly and Mary and Patricia can't make it today. They've got things that they're involved with, but they're going to be watching this later as a video and probably giggling as they see their machines doing things that maybe they never did before, or maybe they didn't know that they could do before. So Janome has a real proud history. I'm going to get off my knees while I still can and talk a little bit about their history and how this company was founded. And maybe it's things that you've heard before. Maybe it's things that you haven't heard before. But Janome has a real proud history, founded right around, let me get my glasses, somewhere around here. They were founded right around 1921 and founded by, let's see, this gentleman's name. I'm trying to find his name. Yasaku Osi. Anyone in, we have people that follow us in Japan as well, and they're saying you didn't even come close to pronouncing the name right. But any rate, I'm trying to pronounce the name of the founder that established this company right around 1921. Yasaku Osi, something like that. Any rate, Janome has a proud history, much prouder than my pronunciation. And they started producing machines right away, but they didn't really establish their trademark of Janome until well over a decade after they opened in 1921. It was right around 1935 that they were trying to come up with a catchy name that seemed to fit, you know, what they were doing and the types of machines they were making. And while they were in a boardroom, they were looking at a bobbin like this, similar to this, a class 15 bobbin. And as they looked at the center of the bobbin, they thought, that looks a lot like a snake. That looks a lot like a snake's eye. And so they ended up coming up with the name Janome, which means eye of the snake. If you didn't know that, you know now. So it has an interesting founding. And the fact that they didn't come up with their trade name right away is even more unique about a company. Most often a company is going to develop their trade name right at the very beginning. It brands who they are. Well, Janome handled it a little bit differently. They went through a migration of deciding who they were and then came up with an appropriate trade name that seemed to fit them like a T. And they've been operating ever since, very, very proudly. But they eventually were taken over and but also acquired other companies in the process, including the New Home Sewing Machine Company as well. So they were a progressive company that continued to expand, and they celebrated 100 years in 2021. So they've been around well over 100 years. I have something stuck in my throat today. They've been operating well over 100 years, and would have produced these Janome Magnolias only probably about 10 years ago. They've not been around long. I should probably Google for sure. I'm estimating based on the features of the machines, but these Magnolias really do. Just typing something real quick. They really do personify. Oh, wow, they've been around. This particular brand name, Magnolia, and there's been different versions of it, but it's been around longer than I anticipated. It's been around about 25 to 26 years. It was first introduced right around 2000. I thought it was a much more recent machine, but when the ladies talked to me when we met them to collect these machines up, and when I talked to Patricia earlier on in the process as we were setting up a meeting, she described them as computerized machines. That's probably why my mind meant probably later back, because they're a mechanical machine. They're not a computerized machine, but I had computerized because that's the way Patricia and the ladies described them. But these are actually not computerized machines. They're mechanical machines. So all the stitches that we do today are going to be generated mechanically, not by a program that's built into a board that's installed in the machines. So that's actually good news that they're not computerized, because a lot of the computerized machines will over time develop issues with those boards, and it's a very costly process to swap those boards out. The board alone can be a couple $100, and then the labor to put that board in sometimes can add another 100 or more to that price tag. So mechanical machines, in my opinion, are really kind of the evolution of where vintage and antique machines went, as they wanted to tap into technology, but not computerized technology, mechanical technology that would generate absolutely drop dead gorgeous stitching, as you'll see in this live stream today. But the Magnolia, based on my AI research right now, has been around over 2 decades. And really it really gives you a beautiful image in your mind as you think about the word Magnolia. Anyone that wants to type into the live chat, what is Magnolia? What does it mean? What do you think of right away? I think of a flower, but you can type in whatever you come up with so that we can get some imagery of why did Janome pick that particular word to represent these machines. So, and you might have noticed when I started this live stream, I was playing what probably sounded like Eastern Asian style music, Japanese music. And it's again because the roots of the Janome Sewing Machine Company go back to 1921 in Japan. And so you'll probably hear a little bit more of that music being played through this live stream so we can celebrate the Japanese culture and the fact that they have been true through the process, even into the 2000s when the Magnolia Sewing Machine series was first introduced, to maintaining quality. I told Patricia, the director of this senior center over in La Follette, Tennessee, over in Campbell County, that the Janomes really have maintained quality. A number of other sewing machine companies really dropped off the quality as they continued to progress forward, focused on profit, not focused on preserving quality. But Janome and other companies like Juki, also a Japanese-based company, have really stuck to their guns and maintained a machine that they could say, this is going to last you longer than 6 months to a year. Other companies don't have those bragging rights. And you know what? I'm just going to call them out. Singer Sewing Machine Company, Brother Sewing Machine Company have really dropped their quality dramatically. They've also built machines that are much more difficult to maintain and service And I think that was done intentionally because they wanted these machines to have issues to break down, and for that owner to say, well, it's probably going to be more expensive for me to get it fixed than to just go out and buy another one. It's part of that track of planned obsolescence, building a machine with the idea that you're building it to break down. And if you sew at the level that these ladies do at the senior center over in La Follette, Tennessee, a Singer sewing machine contemporary or a Brother contemporary sewing machine is probably only going to last you about 6 months to a year. And I mean, under heavy use, that's just the reality. But Janome and Juki and a few select other machines out there will last you a much longer time, especially if you maintain them properly. And I'll show you a couple of the progress shots that I shared with Patricia that I took these machines through, and then we're going to jump into putting these machines to work. All right, let me see if I can get some of these shots up, and I'll show you some progress shots on these machines. Let's see. I got to kind of scroll through a bunch of pictures because I'm working on a number of machines right now at the same time, and I'm also sharing progress shots with those owners. So I've got to scroll back a ways to find the progress shots that I sent to Patricia over at the Senior Center in La Follette, Tennessee. All right, these are going to be kind of backwards order. These are kind of going to be backwards order. But to give you an idea of how much these machines were used, these are some of the progress pictures. I haven't posted these on Facebook yet. So you're getting a preview of them even before the folks that follow us on Facebook get the chance to see them. But you can't see it. This is a combination of lint, but also a lot of thread that was wrapped around the different mechanical attachments within the machine. So I had to really unravel both of these machines in order to free them up and to get them working again. See if I can see what the next one is. Yeah, this is more of that crud that I was able to clean out of the machines. Also had some issues in the raceway where part of the bobbin case had been damaged. You'll see me going through and sanding that out as well. Here's some of the cams on the bottom of the machine that operate the feed dogs that were also jammed up and gummed up as well. See more of it there. Very, very dirty machines. You could see that they had gotten a huge amount of use. I mean, these ladies produced over 2,000 masks during COVID using these machines, along with a lot of other projects. So they had gotten a huge workout. Now, some of you might wonder, there's the motor that is in these Magnolia machines. What size is that motor? If anyone wants to throw out a guess in the live chat, go ahead and throw out a guess as to what size motor, and I'll tell you in a little bit what size motor it is. But the Japanese build some really, really good motors. They truly do. More junk inside of the machine. There's our belt system. The ladies, when I met them with Susie over in Middlesboro, Kentucky, they drove in again from La Follette, Tennessee. They were pretty sure that the belts were worn down. But you can see in the shot here, the belts are actually in really, really good condition. The belts that Japanese Janome makers put into their machines are really built to last the life of the machine decades. So the belts on these machines are still in very, very good condition. There was no need to replace them. I did clean them, and I cleaned the pulleys, but I did not replace the belts on them. There's one of our drive shafts on the bottom that feeds that raceway, and the hook system. Had to really clean that up quite a bit as well. There's the bottom of the machine taken off. Hopefully you can see that in the shot. A lot of service areas on that machine. And again, because of the design of the Janome machines, it's fairly easy to reach most of these service areas to get that machine back to greatness again. You can see some of that old grease on these cams that operate the machine. That becomes really, really hard and caramelized, and it starts to really lock up the machine and hold the machine back. So you'll notice eventually I start putting my proprietary pink grease back on those pivot and rotation points of the Janome Magnolia machines that belong to Beverly and Mary and the senior center over there in La Follette, Tennessee. Just more junk has to be cleaned off. Now, right here is one of the crucial cam drivers that pushes that power down to the raceway. That's not just a thick layer of lint on there. It's also probably the equivalent of almost a half a spool of thread that's wrapped around there as well, that I had to get off of several of the moving components within these machines. And that explains why they were so difficult, really nearly impossible to try to turn that balance wheel. Look at that. Oh my goodness. I showed these to Susie and she was like, holy mackerel. It looks like there was a mouse living in there, but I didn't find any mice living in there. Just a lot of heavy, hard use by these ladies over in La Follette, Tennessee. A lot of heavy use. There you can see more of that built up around there, especially on the base of this cam. And this cam has to move freely to raise and lower the feed dogs on these machines, which was totally jammed up. Totally jammed up. There's our raceway area, just absolutely filthy. And also, you'll notice eventually me working on that bobbin case because it had several barbs of plastic that had been worn off of it and were causing that to not spin freely. There's our faceplate area taken off as well, servicing a lot of areas there. Ah, that's different. I guess that's the end of my pictures. That's President Trump praying with some folks in the Oval Office recently. We need a lot of prayer for this country. I'm not going to get too political, but we've got so much craziness going on in this country right now. And I have to say openly and honestly, a lot of it's being driven by the administration. So they need prayer. And I would encourage you to pray for the president and pray for others that are in leadership roles of our country, because we're going down certain paths right now that could potentially lead to World War III. We've already lost a number of service members over in Iran and lost a number of innocent school children in a bombing from a Tomahawk missile that all the experts are saying came from the U.S. So what a sense of guilt we have as a country now, knowing that this war has also taken the lives of almost 200 school children. But I'll move on from that and I'll move into these machines now, which is a much happier note than our country right now. So, but it's great to have all of you here. And again, I want to welcome the senior citizens of Campbell County over in La Follette, Tennessee. They can't join us today, nor can their director, Patricia, but it's such an honor to meet these ladies. Again, they were so bubbly. Susie was just tickled interacting with them as they came out of this big SUV, just one after another, after another, after another. And they were so delighted to introduce their machines to Susie and me. The machine on the left, I'm partially blocking. Anyway, the machine on the left over here belongs to Beverly, and the machine on the right belongs to Mary. They technically belong to the senior center in Campbell County, La Follette, Tennessee, but these ladies have claimed them. So I'm just going to call them Beverly's machine and Mary's machine. And the plan next week when Susie and I meet them again in Middlesboro, Kentucky, to return these two magnificent Magnolia machines. They've got two other machines that are in equal disrepair that will need workshop magic. So it'll be fun to eventually, hopefully, present two more machines or more from these ladies at the senior center over in La Follette, Tennessee. So So the answer to the size of the motor, I didn't look at the live chat to see if anyone guessed, but the size of the motor, a Japanese motor on these Magnolia machines, again, that would have been introduced originally and then had several evolutions of themselves in the 2000s. They've got a zero point 0.6 amp motor. 0.6 amps is a lot of power. And as I went through that motor on these machines and cleaned all the gunk out of them and just restored them and got them back to their full strength, they're an incredibly strong machine, an incredibly strong motor. So I think we're not going to be focusing on the power necessarily today, but you'll be able to see just how they flow through these sew-offs, how incredibly strong these Japanese motors are. I would buy a Japanese motor, even an aftermarket motor, any day of the week over some of the other makers that kind of pour the motors out and they're made very poorly. The stator wraps are very loosely done and very poorly done. The components of the motor that make that motor great or not great, the Japanese do it right. Some of the other makers in Taiwan and Vietnam and China, they make some pretty crummy motors, to be honest with you. And they oftentimes will overstate what the amperage of those motors are in some of these other countries. So you'll be buying what you think is a 1.5 amp motor from China, but it puts out about a quarter of that power. I've had these on my workshop numerous times, and in a couple of times I actually swapped the motor out at the customer's request because when they saw how weak the motor was and how overstated the amperage of that motor was, they're like, I don't want that in the machine. Throw it away. Throw it in the garbage. Get me a different motor, please. So I think you'll be impressed by what Beverly and by what Mary's machine does today. Okay? Yeah. So I'm going to stop blah, blah, blah for a second and get out of the shot. Stop blocking Beverly's machine. And we'll get going on these machines. I'm basically going to be going back and forth between these machines. If one of the ladies was here, I'd put them in front of one of those machines and say, okay, I just did this sew off. Now you do it. And we'll go back and forth, kind of a dueling banjos thing. But I'm going to be doing it solo today, and I'll do my best with it. The other thing I'll show the ladies that I don't think I told Patricia is on the bottom of these foot controllers. I'm going to go ahead and bend over and grab one of these foot controllers. On the bottom of these foot controllers, I added some new non-skid pads. They had put a kind of a flat pad across the bottom, but because these machines have gotten so much use, the pad was pretty much slicky smooth. And these were just moving all over the place. So I added these non-skid, these stick pads to the bottom of both of Beverly and Mary's foot controllers. So now even on this cement floor, they don't go anywhere. They just stick to the floor. And I think the ladies will be real pleased. I took off the old pads that were worn down to nothing, and I added these to both of these foot controllers. And I think that'll make a big difference in these sew-offs today, especially as I'm going back and forth between the machines, trying to operate both of them during this live stream. Okay. So I think we'll start with Beverly's machine. We'll start with a straight stitch, a zigzag. Then we'll go over to Mary's machine here on the right. We'll do a straight, a zigzag, and then we'll kind of just go through all of the stitches. I'll show you close up all of the stitches that are built into these Magnolia machines. And again, these are not computerized machines. They're mechanical machines. So when we change between the different stitches, we're going to be generating these stitches with a built-in cam that reader finger inside the body of this machine is going to be reading to generate that stitching. We're not going to have the benefit or the disadvantage, maybe another way to look at it. We're not going to have the disadvantage of a computerized board that can fry and go out. We're going to have the solid mechanical functions of these machines that I service, continuing to maintain these machines for a long time without any issues of computer boards, overheating, developing dust on them, and then getting hot and frying out. These machines are a lot better, a lot more predictable, a lot more reliable way to generate beautiful stitching without the fear of what's going to happen when those boards go out. So let me see if I can move over by Beverly's machine. I don't have it zoomed in today, so hopefully I'm going to be close enough so you can see. I'm going to show you what I've got over here right now. This machine is going to be heading to New Mexico very soon. It's a Singer 1591. I'm all but done with it. I've gone through hand polishing everything, tearing everything apart. And I would say maybe by this Saturday, I'll have the rest of the machine done. And you'll see this 1591 do its stuff, going through some crazy, crazy heavy duty sew-offs. And I know that our friend out in New Mexico, I'm just got so many things going through my head right now. I want to make sure I get his name right. I believe it's Michael. Hold on a second. No, Stephen. Oh, goodness gravy. Stephen is going to be the proud new owner of this 1591. And I don't remember if I looked up. I know I looked it up for Stephen, but I don't remember what the date of this 1591 is. So if anyone wants to look it up, I'm going to show you the serial plate. I think you can see that. And if someone's willing to look up Stephen's 1591 that I'm hoping to present this Saturday, that would be super cool if you're willing to do that. So it looks like, I think you can see it, but it's AJ 052527. So if someone wants to look that up, that would be great. And I've got to make a little space over here for the camera. You see how many projects I have going right now. Lots and lots of projects. It looks like I'm not going to be able to put it up there. It's going to be too far away. So I'm just going to have to hope that the camera doesn't jiggle off of the portable workbench that I have it sitting on. All right, let me see if I can get this underneath the presser foot. We'll do a straight stitch first. And this particular Janome Magnolia is going to have automatic adjusting as far as presser foot pressure. Now, I didn't run it through any crazy heavy duty sew-offs, but in the sew-offs that I did, that automatic presser foot pressure did a good job. Again, I'm a really strong believer in the Japanese machines. They tend to do a real good job of engineering the machine in a quality way. Even more contemporary machines like these that were first established back in the 2000s, they tend to do a really, really good job with their machines. Okay, I think I've got that fairly straight. I'm hoping we're going to be able to see this because I also upgraded the ladies' bulbs in these machines from older style incandescents like this to the LED lights. I told Patricia that, and that's a real big positive to have these LED lights in the machines. As we get older, our eyes need more help seeing things, don't they? And so it's really, really helpful to have a brighter light so that if you're in a space that doesn't have the best lighting, you've got a light in the machine that will get the job done for you. Okay. I don't know what you can actually see there. The camera shot I've got isn't too great. And I don't know if I have any other options. Let me see if I can grab another chair. I'm going to grab another workshop chair and see if I can set the camera on that. Maybe that will give us a better shot of the stitching as we're doing this. So put the camera right there and bring it up. Okay, we're going to try this angle. It's not the best angle, but it's probably a better angle than what I did before. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to the machine with this chair there. I might have to slide the table over too. Hold on a second. See that? That's the beauty of live streams. You're always shooting from the hip and trying to figure things out as you go. That's why a lot of people will pre-record and edit their stuff. I don't edit it. You guys see me struggling with different things sometimes. And you're like, yeah, that's a struggle. Let's see if I can move over Beverly's machine a little bit as well. And that way, if I want to try to get closer, I can try to do it. Okay. So again, we've got a Magnolia by Janome. The model number, if you want to know the model number, is 7318. 7318. And again, this particular machine is equipped with a 0.6 amp motor. That's a lot of power. It's a lot of power. So I don't know on some of the quilting that these ladies do over at the senior center in La Follette, Tennessee. I'm not sure how many layers they're going through, but these Janomes should have no issue from a motor power standpoint getting through those sew-offs. They got a lot of get up and go. Okay. So I'm going to put on a little bit of Japanese music in the background, or at least get it ready to go in the background. Turn down my volume a little bit so I don't blast you away. But first of all, I'll let you listen to this machine operate. It's really a sweet operating machine. It's really quite lovely. Okay, so this is Beverly's machine again. Let me move that all the way over. So I'd like to put you right here, but then I have to hold the camera at the same time. And also that LED light is kind of goofing around with the camera. See that? So we'll stay back over here, and then I'll show you the stitch offs after we get done. There we go. Set that right there. Okay. So a straight stitch, a zigzag, and then we'll do some other sew-offs after that, kind of going through the wide spans of stitches that these machines have. Okay, straight stitch. Here we go. Love the sound of this machine. All right, I'm going to turn that right there. And I'll show you these sew-offs after we get done doing the zigzag as well. I'll make just a slight adjustment on here. Okay. And I should also mention something else I didn't mention yet. These Magnolia machines, the manufacturer recommends a class 15 bobbin, but it's a special type of class 15 bobbin. It's called a J series, J like Juliet. It's a J series class 15 bobbin. And the difference between a standard class 15 bobbin and a J series bobbin, let me see if I can find my little bobbin bike. Here it is. The difference between a class 15 standard bobbin and a class 15 J series bobbin, I'm going to take out one of the J series ones that Susie gave me, is, and you won't be able to see this probably on the camera. I doubt you'll be able to see it on the camera. But the J series one, which is right here on the left that I'm tapping on, is going to have rounded edges that will seat into that raceway area and turn smoothly and evenly. So again, a class 15 J series bobbin is what you want to have in your Magnolia sewing machine. And I'm going to give the ladies a couple of extra ones so that they've got them so they can wind bobbins in advance. And if they have the same type of sewing machines that they're going to bring next week, once we return these to them, then I'll make sure that those have the correct bobbin as well. They're going to be virtually the same in measurements if we use our caliper, but the rounded edge on the class 15J is going to work well in the machine. A standard class 15 that's going to have flat edges, not rounded, is not going to turn well in the machine, and it's going to create a lot of tension issues. And that's what I experienced initially, because these machines came with only one bobbin. One machine had a bobbin, the other didn't. So I started working with the bobbin that the ladies had. I figured, Jiminy Crickets, if they made 2,000 masks during the pandemic and they've made a bunch of lap quilts, it's going to be the right bobbin. Well, I was wrong. It was the wrong bobbin. It was a standard class 15 plastic bobbin, but it was not a J series bobbin that has those rounded edges. So, you know, even the wizard sometimes can jump to the wrong conclusion or make the wrong assumption that what the customer is using is working right but they might be having struggles that they didn't articulate. So again, with the Janome Model 7318 Magnolia sewing machine by Janome, make sure that you've got a Class 15 J series, which is this one right here with the rounded edges, not a standard Class 15. And in these machines similar to this, never, ever, ever use a metal bobbin. Do not use a metal bobbin in them. There's a lot of Class 15 bobbins available. You can buy them at the sewing centers. You can buy them at Walmart. They will damage these machines by grinding away at the plastic bobbin case and at the plastic components in that raceway. So never, ever use a metal bobbin in any of these machines like this, okay? Hopefully I hammered that home enough. So I'll put this back in the bag. Again, Susie and I are going to give some extra Class 15 J Series bobbins to the senior citizens of Campbell County in La Follette, Tennessee, and then they'll be set up for absolute success. Okay? Yeah. All right. Let me move some of this other stuff out of the way. All right, I'm going to put on a little bit of Japanese music and let myself get a quick drink. And then let me set this back up here. We'll get this ready for the next sew off with a zigzag. And I'll take you around the machine as well. It's a very simple machine to operate, but I'll take you around the machine as well and just kind of show you the lay of the land in just a few seconds. All right, I'm going to pause that music real quick. So our first sew off we did is a straight stitch. We're now going to set the machine to do a zigzag. So the lay of the land on this machine real quick as we're looking at Beverly's machine is on the right side, kind of looking over here first. We have our stitch width right on top. Got our stitch width right here. Right, you can see right now we're set on 0. So I'm going to go ahead and change this from 0 to 5. And whenever you're making width or length adjustments on any sewing machine, make sure your needle is clear of the material. I'm going to shut the light off for a second. Make sure your needle is clear of the material because that needle is going to move as you're adjusting your stitch width or your stitch length. And if you have it down in the material, it's going to bend the needle. So don't ever have your needle down as you're making adjustments to stitch width or stitch length on any sewing machine, okay? And you can see our stitching. I was going to show it to you after we do the zigzag, but a beautiful, beautiful top stitch right there that we just laid down using this machine that Beverly uses. Lock stitching as well, absolutely gorgeous. We'll look at this in the lighting a little bit better. I'm going to turn that. The switch for the on and off is on the right side of the machine, and you can't shut the light off. So these cameras don't like the LED lights. You can see how it's kind of fluttering, doing weird stuff. That's a result of the LED light that I installed in the machine. Great for sewing, horrible for shooting video of. So we're going to adjust our stitch width all the way up to the widest point, which is 5. So we've got our stitch width now on 5. And you can see the Janome people, not only do they engineer a machine well, but they also want it to be user-friendly. So instead of just giving you a stitch width, they put width right on there. It's a brilliant, brilliant, sensitive way of building a machine so that the end user doesn't have to struggle. And that's really their philosophy is let's make sewing fun. Let's make sewing fun. So there's our stitch width. This is our stitch selector right here, just like they put right here. Right now we're set on A, which is going to be a straight stitch. We're going to go all the way over to C, which is going to give us a zigzag. So now we're going to be set on C for a zigzag. Our stitch length is already on 4. We're going to leave it on 4. So now we're going to do the widest, longest zigzag possible that the Magnolia can do. Okay? All right. I wish I could get closer, but I can't. All right. So here goes a zigzag on Beverly's Janome model 7318. All right, here we go. Just an absolutely silky smooth running machine now after Workshop Magic. She's just tip top running. It's such a pleasure to operate. And this is not, most people wouldn't consider this a vintage machine, but you know, it sure is running like one. It sure is running like a vintage machine for sure. All right, so let me clip this thread. We'll look at these stitches a little bit closer up. And then we'll move over to Mary's machine after that. Okay, so I'm going to look at my laptop screen, see if I can show these to you. All right, I almost got it. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. Very, very nice stitching. The spacing, the formation, everything about those stitches is just absolutely spot on. Lovely, lovely stitches. We turn it over, we look at that lock stitching on the back. There's our zigzag and our straight stitch lock stitching, absolutely perfectly balanced. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. And again, we're not doing heavy duty with these magnolias. We're just showing the features and the fluidity of how beautifully these machines sew. All right, let me go ahead and get that set. Now we're going to pivot over to Mary's machine and see if we can do a straight and a zigzag on that. And then I'll stick with one machine as we go through a series of decorative ornamental stitches. And let me show those stitches to you. So if you have a particular one that you want to see, and you'll have to specify if you want a stitch in the blue or the pink series, because when we move into the pink series, those particular stitches are going to be using what I refer to as tri-motion, where it's not going to be just generating the stitch with the needle movement. It's also going to be manipulating the feed dogs at the same time to move that material back and forth in succession with the needle to generate some absolutely drop dead gorgeous stitching. So we'll move into those next, and I'll go down those, but I want to show you the stitches first. These are identical machines. So what you're seeing on Beverly's machine is also going to be on Mary's machine as well. So you can see we kind of start with the straight stitching, a left needle position. It's both of these are going to be left needle positions, but it gives you two different options within the straight stitch. Then we go to the zigzag, which is C. D is going to be a 3-point zigzag. And then as I go down, I'll just show you all the stitches, and you can see if there's one that jumps off the screen at you. I'm trying to see if, am I getting a big shadow on there, or is that just my screen? I think it's just my screen. Yeah, that's just my screen is doing something weird. All right, so let's go all the way down. You can look at these. This again is going to be the blue series from here to here, the pink series from here to here. And if you have a particular stitch that you want to see, I'm going to do all of them anyway, but I'll do them out of order maybe, and that way you can see them and feel like you're involved in the process. So these are all the stitches that are available on these magnolias. J in the pink series, I showed that to Susie after I got done fixing the machines, and neither one of us had seen that stitch before. That all the way down to the bottom here, the J pink series stitch. It's a very unique looking stitch, very, very unique. Okay, so that gives you an idea, at least a little bit of an idea of the stitches that are on these machines. We're going to go over to Mary's machine now to do a straight and a zigzag, and then we'll come back to Beverly's, and we're just going to hammer those decorative ornamental stitches so we can get all those stitches done, and you have a chance to appreciate what a Janome mechanical machine can do from a decorative ornamental standpoint. Okay? All right, let me reset. Let's see here. Let me reset this camera for Mary's machine. Get the foot controller ready. And we'll lay down some stitching over on this other Magnolia. Again, a model 7318 by Janome. Do a straight stitch first. You get the camera over there. Whoopsie. Whoopsie. I hope we still have audio. I just knocked off my microphone. Doggone it. Can you guys still hear me okay? I hope. I've never, ever in all the years dropped this microphone. We still have good audio, you guys? We still have good audio, I hope. Yes, happy St. Patrick's Day. You're right. Absolutely. Hey, guys, let me know. Do we still have audio? Sounds good here? Okay. Thank you. Perfect. All right. Yeah, we're like a country mile from these machines today. Let me try that. See if I can put, I've got the camera by Beverly's machine now. We'll see if we can leave this in place, at least for the sew off. Okay, so I'm going to lay down a straight stitch first on Mary's machine, and then I'm going to go through a zigzag, and then we'll move into the decorative ornamental stitches over on Beverly's machine. Okay? All right, hopefully I don't drop anything else. Here we go. Straight stitch, here we go. That is a smooth, smooth runner. Smooth runner. All right. We'll give that a clip and we'll lay down a zigzag. We'll take a look at the stitching up close, and then we'll move back over to Beverly's machine after that. All right, so let me clip these, and then we'll move to a zigzag. Really kind of excited to show you these decorative stitches because, again, the ladies thought these were computerized machines, but they're not. It's all mechanical function. Really quite impressive. All right, so I'm going to make the same adjustment on Mary's that I did on Beverly's. I'm going to change our stitch width, and again, my needle is clear of the material. Needle is clear of the material. I'm going to go ahead and move our width from 0 all the way to 5. Our stitch length is already on 4, and now I've got to take our stitch selector and move it from A to C. And I'll go ahead and turn our light back on. Yeah, we're almost at the end of our cord here. I better not pull it too far. All right, so we're going to do a zigzag now. Turn the machine back on. And then we'll go back over to Beverly's and we'll have some fun with some decorative ornamental stitches. All right, here we go. Zigzag, make sure everything's set. I do. Here we go. All right, give these threads a clip, and let's look and see how Mary's machine laid down this stitching. Beverly's just absolutely did a spectacular job. Spectacular job. And the way I remember the difference between these two machines, since they're identical, is when Susie and I picked these machines up from the ladies over in Middlesboro, Kentucky, Beverly's had tape across here, as if this was loose, and it was. I found the nut that holds it on the backside inside of the machine, and then I remounted this bobbin winder. I'll call it kind of a retarder, because what it does is you adjust it. It decides how full that bobbin is going to get. And now we got rid of the tape. So when Beverly gets this back, her machine is going to look pretty much like Mary's machine, and hopefully they don't fight over it. This particular screw I put in Beverly's is a little bit bigger. So her screw is bigger. The one on Mary's is a little bit smaller, but yeah, you always find things. Oh, the other thing I didn't mention, I mentioned bobbin winding. I did not specifically say it, but these do not have an auto disengagement on the bobbin winder. When you're going to wind a bobbin on one of these Magnolia machines, you have to take the balance wheel and actually pull it out. So you grab it like this and watch what happens. Now, when you pull it out, it's going to disengage the shaft from the needle, the main shaft that feeds the needle, and that way the needle doesn't move. When you're done winding a bobbin, you've got to push it back in again so that main shaft is engaged and the needle will move in the sewing process. Other than that, it's very basic. If you're winding a bobbin, I might as well just say it now on Beverly's. You're going to put your bobbin on here, your Class 15 J Series bobbin. You're going to go and push it over, and you're going to thread it from here, or you can add an extra spool pin here and put an extra spool on there. You'll go around this tensioner right here, and then just come right back to the bobbin. So it's just a quick little loop around, and you can wind a bobbin that way. And then again, if your bobbin is under filling, you'll loosen your screw and rotate this so that this isn't pressing into the bobbin as much. If you can see what I mean. Let me grab one of these J Series bobbins and I'll show you real quick. So as we put a bobbin on there and we engage it, depending on how far this is rotated in, hold on a second. I put this bobbin on, depending on how far this is rotated in, this piece right here, if you're not getting a full enough bobbin, then you'll loosen your screw and you'll rotate this clockwise so that it allows more space and clearance inside of where the bobbin is. This basically extends into there, and it's going to push that away and disengage the winding process. If it's disengaging it too early, then just loosen your screw, rotate this, and then when you get it to the position down, don't over tighten it, because again, it's screwed into plastic, but go ahead and tighten it, snug it back up, and then you can go ahead and get the desired result as far as how full you want that bobbin. But make sure that you pull this out first, otherwise your needle is going to be moving and jam up your raceway. Okay. So let's look at this stitching we just did on Mary's machine. I'm right at the end of my camera cable, so I don't want to pull it too far. I'm going to hold it right about here. Take off my glasses so I can see the screen over there. On Mary's machine, really quite a lovely stitch. Quite a lovely stitch. The straight stitching, the zigzag, kind of go up like this. Very, very nice. We turn it over, we look at that lock stitching. Push that camera back further. I'm right on the edge of that cord being too tight, and I don't want to disconnect this. And again, these two machines were totally jammed up and pretty much appeared like they were dead when they came into the workshop. And you can hear them running now. They're just absolutely silky smooth and laying down some beautiful stitching. So top stitching as it should be, lock stitching as it should be on Mary's machine. And I'll let Mary and Beverly kind of debate as to which machine did better. You know, the audience can certainly chime in, but I think both of the machines are going to just do an excellent job of getting the job done today. Doing a brilliant job. Okay. All right. So back over to Beverly's machine now, and I'm not going to drop the microphone again, I promise. Get the microphone back in a safe spot. Got all kinds of cords that I've got to untangle as I'm going back and forth. That's why I'm going to stick with Beverly's machine now and not try to move cords around, because I'm going to end up dropping the camera again, which is not good, or dropping the microphone, I should say. Okay, so we're back to Beverly's machine now. There we go. There's the other magnolia down there. And now we're going to go through some of those decorative stitches. I'm just going to look at the live chat right now. I don't believe that anyone chimed in and said that they wanted to see a particular stitch. So I'm just going to jump in and start generating some beautiful machine. And then we'll move over to Mary's and we'll do kind of the same thing. Well, let me look at the live chat real quick and just see. Jenny pulled out a 401 so she could do a zigzag. Something's going on, it sounds like. So quick good morning. I'm going to kind of shout across the workshop here. Quick good morning to my beautiful wife, Susie. Good morning to Teresa and Tim, or at least Teresa. No, there's Tim. Good morning to Teresa and Tim over in Wisconsin that has been getting slammed by snow. I'm not sure how much snow they got, but I know that the whole Midwest area, and even us down in Kentucky, we got about 2 inches of snow. And any of you up in the upper north area that got 20 inches of snow, you're saying 2 inches of snow? That's nothing. Well, it isn't. It really is nothing compared to what they got in Michigan and Wisconsin and Minnesota. We watched a little bit on the news last night, and holy mackerel, all the way into North Carolina. I think the whole coast got slammed with severe weather. So hopefully everybody, and the storm is past now. But always great to have Teresa and Tim here. And I don't think it's a great secret. Teresa and Tim visited Susie and I shortly after we came to Kentucky, and they stayed at one of our properties. They had their own private chateau that they could stay at with Rutger, their dog, a beautiful American bulldog. And they went around Virginia with us. They went around Tennessee. They went around Kentucky with us. And they fell so much in love with the area that when Tim is getting closer and closer to retirement, they're talking seriously about moving to Kentucky. So eventually we may be able to do some live streams with Tim and Teresa as residents of Kentucky. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be cool? Be able to involve them in what we're doing with Cow Country right here, Kentucky. So I don't want to say that it's a definite, absolute thing, but it's looking pretty sure, pretty definite, semi-definite, maybe. Yeah. Okay. So also good morning to let's see, I think Jenny's in the live chat as well. Also Kathy King, great to have Kathy King with us. Let's see here. Scrolling. Good morning again to Jenny out in Ohio. So here's the thing. We've got very few, pretty much we have all leaders that are in the, now we have almost 1,500 people in the live stream right now, but we have very few people in the live chat. So let me challenge all of you watching right now. Let me challenge you to step out of the shadows and to join the live chat, get to know some of these folks, introduce yourself, talk about the type of sewing you do, talk about the machines you have, and don't just sit in the background and watch. Get involved. Just like with our government, as our government goes through these different changes, step out there and get involved. If you agree with it, then let your voice be heard. If you disagree with it, let your voice be heard. But don't just sit in the shadows. Get out of the shadows and join us. Let me encourage you to do that. But again, you got to feel comfortable, right? So do it when you're ready. If not this live stream, at another live stream, get out of the shadows and join us in the live chat, please. And I know that there's a few extra steps to get into the live chat. If you're not sure what to do, Google it. If you're not sure how to get into the live chat, use an AI search and let it guide you on how to join in on the live chat. I know it's not an automatic thing. There's a couple of extra steps. So take those steps when you're ready. We'd love to have you so we can get a chance to welcome you and not just say welcome to the 1,500 people, but welcome to everybody that's in the live chat as well. Okay. I want to also thank you all. Thank you. It looks like we have almost 700 thumbs ups already on the live chat or on the live. Thank you for those thumbs ups. And if you haven't given a thumbs up yet, please consider doing that. Please consider doing that. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Let me get this camera to a point where it's not going to fall to the. We're looking at Beverly's machine right now. And now we're going to do some of the ornamental fancy stuff. We're going to do some of the fancy stuff on this machine. All right. So the first thing I have to decide to do is which stitch am I going to pick over here? Which stitch? I love 3-point zigzag, so I'm going to go to D. I'm going to adjust our stitch selector to D. Just give it one click. And now I'm set to the 3-point zigzag. I'm going to leave the stitch. No, I'm not. I'm going to change the stitch length. I'm going to bring the stitch length down to about 2. So I've got my stitch selector on 3-point zigzag, which is D in the blue series. I'm going to leave my stitch width on 5. And again, I adjusted this down so we get a little bit of a tighter pattern, hopefully. And now we're going to lay down a 3-point zigzag, and then we'll move into some of the real cool stitches. Magnolia. Okay, so here we go. 3-point zigzag. Here we go. All right. There we go. And I'll show you all of these once we're done, because otherwise we're going to run about 6 hours on this live stream. So we just did the 3-point zigzag. Now we'll move into another stitch, and then we'll look at all of these at the same time. All right. Get that back underneath the presser foot. And again, if you weren't here at the beginning, this Magnolia is going to be using that technology of auto adjustment on the presser foot. So whether you're sewing a lighter sew off like this, where we've got 2 layers of cotton, 100% cotton, and a stiffener in between, whether we're doing that or whether, I just put this in upside down. Whatever you're sewing, according to the technology claims, the presser foot will adjust automatically. If you're sewing something thicker, it's going to push down harder. If you're sewing something lighter, it's going to reduce that pressure. They're not always perfect. I'll just say that. They're not always perfect, but the Japanese, again, through Janome, they do a much better job of perfecting that technology. And I think we'll have a lot better results as we change between different thicknesses of materials. So now we did a 3-point zigzag. I don't know if you can see that with the light on. I'll shut the light off. I can't see the screen on the laptop at all. Let me adjust the laptop screen. Hold on. There we go. Now I can see some of the laptop screen. So we just did a 3-point zigzag. Now let's move into some other stitches, and we'll do this rapid fire to move us forward, okay? So let's see here. Let me move down to the I stitch under blue. So I'm going to click this selector all the way over to I. And again, my needle is clear of the material. Okay, so we're gonna be trying to generate this stitch right here, and then we'll do J after that in the blue series, and then we'll move into the tri-motion stitches over here. I've got I on. I'm not going to change anything on stitch length. I'm going to leave it right on 2, right around 2. I think will be pretty good. Probably could make it a little bit tighter. Give it a couple clicks, a little bit closer to the 1. We're kind of at 1 3/4. So we've got our stitch length set just a little bit below 2. We've got our stitch selector on I. We've got our stitch width still at the widest setting so that this stitch has room to present itself, okay? So let's do this stitch now, the I stitch, and then we'll do the J stitch right after it. Okay, here we go. Oh, I get my take-up arm all the way up. Let me get my take-up arm all the way up so we launch smoothly. All right, here we go. There we go. Oh, yeah, this is a cool stitch. Very cool stitch. I like that. If you can see that in the shot at all, kind of far away from it, but yeah, let's do that eye stitch now. Oh, we just did the eye stitch. Excuse me. Let's do the J stitch. I got to learn my alphabet. We'll do the J stitch now. And again, we're operating right now on this machine that Beverly uses at the Senior Center over in La Follette, Tennessee. I got to get this garbage can in a better location. I'm going to pull a muscle trying to throw away the thread in between sew-offs. All right, now we're going to do that next stitch, the J stitch. I cut a real big piece of material. I hope it's big enough because we got so many stitch options on these magnolias. I want to try to present as many as I can so that as Beverly and Mary move back into additional projects and others at the Senior Center as well are using these machines to sew projects, they're like, oh, I want to try that stitch that Scott showed on Mary's machine, or I want to see that stitch that that he did on Beverly's machine. Oftentimes users will stick to a straight and a zigzag and some other basic utility stitches, but they don't venture into these really, really cool decorative ornamental stitches. And I really want these ladies to feel excitement about getting these machines back and say, hey, I never tried that one before. I'm going to try it now, right? So I'm going to adjust the stitch selector now to H. Again, notice my needle is clear of the material. No, J, I'm sorry, not H. We'll click the stitch selector to J. We're going to leave our stitch width on around a little bit below 2. So let's do this next stitch now. And then we'll take a look at all these stitches once we get through several more of them. Okay. And you can see this particular stitch I just did, the J stitch is going to need a much shorter stitch length. It's going to need a much shorter stitch length. Yeah, that's way too wide on this pattern. We want to tighten it up quite a bit. Some of these stitches are going to require just a little bit tighter stitch length setting so you can really see the beauty of that stitch. You really can see the beauty of that stitch. So I'm going to duplicate that stitch one more time. The one we just did, the J stitch. We did the blue J stitch right over here, this one here. But the result we got is it's just not nearly tight enough. It's not going to present that stitch the way I want to see it. So we're going to take our stitch length over here. We're going to make it shorter. Bring it down several more clicks. There we go. We brought it about 3 more clicks down. And we're going to sew the same stitch, and it'll give you an idea of how adjusting stitch length and width, when you're able to do that, will change the look of that stitch dramatically. It'll change the look of that stitch dramatically. So here we go. We're going to be sewing that J stitch one more time, but you're going to see the difference of how it presents. All right, here we go. We probably could have gone even shorter than that. Well, you get an idea of how it changes the look of it. We're starting to tighten it up, but I probably should have even gone shorter than that. Probably gone almost down to 1. Almost down to 1. Now, when we get into the pink tri-motion stitches, they make it a lot easier on us. They've got a preset that we only adjust the fine-tuning shortly and subtly, and the machine will make the rest of the adjustments for us for that tri-motion stitching. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move that. And let's move into some of these other decorative stitches. Now we're going to be going into tri-motion stitches. So we're going to be sewing with the same letter possibly, but we're going to be going into the red series. And the way we do that is we have to adjust our stitch length to get down into the stretch stitch setting right here where it's kind of a raspberry pink color. Can you see that? So we've got to adjust this. Actually, I have to go the other way. Now we're going to be going into the stretch stitch area, and we've got a plus and a minus. So if you go to the plus, it's going to elongate that stitch pattern just slightly. If you go to the minus, it's going to tighten up that stitch pattern. I like to click it a little bit further, right about to there. And we'll try some of these decorative stitches down here. Matter of fact, I'll leave it on J. I'll leave the stitch selector on J, and we'll stitch this stitch right here, the unique one that Susie and I hadn't seen before. So we'll do this and we'll kind of work our way up, okay? Work our way up on Beverly's machine. Okay, so we'll do this one and then we'll move up the series of stitches. Here we go. And notice the material being moved back and forth very rapidly. I think you can even see that from this distance. It's moving that material back and forth very rapidly as it generates this stitch with needle movement and also with feed dog movement at the same time. And on tri-motion stitches, I'll just pause again real quick. On tri-motion stitches, because you're working with needle movement and feed dog movement, pedal to the metal, you can sew at a reasonable pace, but you don't want to be sewing too fast or it may distort that stitching because you're having to work with the timing of the needle clearing the material, the feed dogs moving very, very rapidly, and it can cause issues as far as stitch quality if you try to go too fast. It's probably a nice pace right there. There we go. All right, so let me clip the threads on this one, and then we'll move into our other really, really cool stitches. And we'll look at all these stitches at the same time on Beverly's machine. I'm always tempted to kind of give you a preview, but I'm going to make you wait this time. Yeah, that is a very unique stitch. Very, very unique. Okay, we'll keep moving down the series of stitches. I think we'll have plenty of room, hopefully. Okay, so now I'm going to change our stitch selector from the J stitch down here in the pink series up to the I. It's going to give us kind of a floral type stitch, on I right here. So I'll change this to I. Everything else I'll leave the same. This again is going to be a preset range between plus and minus. I'm more on the minus side, so I get a little bit tighter pattern. And then our stitch width stays at 5. And everything else is just easy peasy, as Janome likes to make it. Janome likes to make sewing fun, not stressful. So they tend to make it very, very straightforward. Okay, so let's do this floral one, and we'll just move up the series, and we'll check all these stitches out on Beverly's machine at the same time. All right, here we go. Stop right there. Oh, yeah. Lovely. Very, very lovely. Very, very lovely. I should have more than enough bobbin thread to get us to the finish line. Class 15 bobbins, if you don't know this, Class 15 bobbins hold about 30% more thread. I'll say 25% more thread than, say, a Class 66 bobbin. About 25% more thread than a Class 66 bobbin. So if you have a machine like this Magnolia that sews with that Class 15 J series bobbin, you're going to be able to sew and sew and sew and sew without having to change out or wind a bobbin for quite a long time, more so than a lot of the other bobbin series, including the 66. All right, so I'm going to adjust the stitch selector. You may be able to see me doing that off in the distance here. I'm just going to click us over to H now. Get another one of those really cool stitches. Everything stays the same on stitch length. Everything stays the same on stitch width up here on top of the machine. We'll do this next stitch, and we'll just keep mowing through them until we do almost all, if not, yeah, we'll do all of the decorative stitches, pretty much. All right, here we go. And you notice I'm barely guiding the material, the feed dog system. And again, the presser foot pressure is doing an excellent job of managing that material. An excellent job. There are some machines where you feel like you're driving a race car trying to keep that material straight as it's going over the feed dogs and underneath the presser foot. With these Janome Magnolia models, and most, I would say most, if not all, Janome machines are going to have a similar feed system. They do a fabulous job of keeping that material feeding straight and true without having to overmanage that material. You might have to guide it just slightly, but not much. Again, I'm really a big fan of Janome. They do an excellent job of engineering quality, precision machines, even to today. They've maintained that quality standard where others have dropped by and really kind of cut the corners to make more profit. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the next stitch, which is the G stitch. You can see it over here. I think you can see it right there above my finger. So I'm just going to adjust our stitch selector, one click. Again, my material is clear of the needle, so we're not going to bend a needle. I might drop the microphone, but I'm not going to bend a needle. We're going to leave our stitch width the same. Our stitch length is going to stay right in that SS range between plus and minus, more towards the minus side. And we'll now do our next stitch. Okay. And again, notice I'm regulating my speed because these are tri-motion stitches where the needle movement and the feed dogs are working concurrently. I'm giving that machine a little bit more time to produce that stitch. All right, stop right there. So if you were kind of negative or poo-poo about a machine that wouldn't be considered a genuine vintage machine, I would encourage you to rethink that as you look at these Janome Magnolia machines that are, from a series that started about 2.5 decades ago. So maybe you could argue that they're a very young vintage machine, but most people would consider them, a non-vintage machine. But they really do quite an excellent job of laying down stitching. Quite an excellent job. All right, let's go to our next one now. It's going to be, I believe, the F. It's going to look like little pyramids almost. Pyramids, smaller pyramids, bigger pyramids. We'll go F, E, D, C, and then we're done on Beverly's machine. Okay? So I'm going to adjust that stitch selector now over to F. All right, let's do this next stitch line now, and then we're going to eventually be able to look at all these stitches at the same time. All right, here we go. Let me get that size 13 shoe on the foot control in a more level way. There we go. All right. Beautiful stitching. I'm excited to show these to you. Lovely, lovely stitching. Beverly's machine is really taking the trophy so far, but I think Mary's machine is going to demonstrate the same level of greatness. All right, so I'm just going to adjust that stitch selector from F to E so we can get a smaller pyramid type thing, or maybe you see it as a boat sail. Preview of these. Yeah, maybe you see it as a boat sail. Maybe you see it as waves. I don't know what you see it as. But we're going to go ahead and do this next one, which is going to give us a little bit bigger version of the original one. Okay. Get my take-up arm all the way up. And if you don't know what a take-up arm is, look right here as I rotate the balance wheel towards me. You'll see that popping up. You want to get that to the highest point so it's just about ready to go down. And then you want to launch from that position. It's going to give you the best results for sewing without binding up the machine. When you have a mechanical machine, you've got to give it every opportunity to have that fluidity. And if you follow that principle of taking that take-up arm to the highest point, in most instances, it's going to give you a much smoother launch, Okay? All right, here we go. All right, let me get my foot on there. There we go. There we go. Yeah, that's cool. Very cool. I like the way that they size that one up. It's basically the same stitch, but they just enlarged it a little bit. So depending on what project you're working on, or maybe a quilt edging that you want to do, you have a choice between a larger or a smaller scale version of the same stitch. Very, very nice. All right, let me get this back into place. We only have a couple more stitches to do on Beverly's machine, and then we're going to pivot over to Mary's machine and take it down a similar journey. Maybe we'll do it the opposite way. We'll start from the top down as far as the more decorative ornamental stitches. And on Mary's, I'll remember to take that stitch length shorter on that blue stitch where we can really try to tighten that pattern up much more than we did on Beverly's machine, okay? All right, so we're going to be doing the D stitch now, probably the most complex stitch from a pattern generation of any of the stitches on this machine. You can see it right there, just above my finger. Where is it? There it is. The D stitch is very, very complex. And so when you're sewing a stitch like this, you're going to want to slow the machine down a little bit more and give that stitch generation more opportunity to have success. Okay, so let's go to D now. And again, whenever you're changing your stitch selector or changing your stitch length or your stitch width, make sure that needle is out of the material. Make sure it's out of the material, okay? All right, let's do this real complex one. Hopefully you'll be able to see this machine really working, moving those feed dogs, moving that needle to generate this stitch, okay? Here we go. I'm getting close to the edge of the material, so I'm making sure I don't get my finger pinched or stabbed in the process as I'm just lightly guiding this material, lightly guiding it. All right, just a couple more stitches left on Beverly's machine. There we go. Get that in place. Take up arms all the way at the highest position. So now I'm going to be going to, actually, we only have one more stitch on Beverly's machine, only one more stitch. I might redo that blue one again so we can try to really tighten it up and get a different look for it. So I'm going to go ahead and click our stitch selector now from D over to C. I'll leave our stretch stitch setting range at the same point, a little bit towards the negative side. Leave our stitch width alone. Yep, everything else is going to stay pretty much static. So let's do this last stretch stitch, and then we'll go back to that blue series and we'll redo that stitch that I really wanted to get that stitch pattern tighter and more defined, okay? All right, here we go. All right, perfect. And I didn't mention the setup that we have today, but you pretty much can guess it, can't you? We've got our Schmetz universal size 90-14 needle. We've got our Coates & Clark dual duty XP thread. And I run with that quite a bit because it works so well for diverse sewing, not only on cotton like this, but on leather and everything. Universal does an excellent job, and it works very, very nicely with that Coates & Clark dual duty XP thread. They get along so well. They get along so well. Okay, so one more stitch. I'm going to do a repeat stitch. I'm going to take us back up to this one right here, the J stitch under blue, kind of an eyebrow stitch, if you will. And in order to do that, we've got to adjust our stitch length out of the stretch stitch range back to our standard range. So I'm going to set our stitch length all the way down. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. I'm going to bring our stitch length to repeat this stitch again, almost down to 1. We're just slightly above 1. And then I'm going to adjust our stitch selector back to J. And again, my needle is clear of the material right now. Stitch width will stay the same at 5. So now we're going to sew this stitch one more time. If I shut off the light, you can see that we attempted to do it right in these two columns right here where my finger is touching. And we tightened it up a little bit when we went from here to here. This one is obviously tighter. If I point at it with the clippers, this was the second one we did. The first one we did right here, but I think we can do better than that. So I'm going to stitch it one last time. We moved our stitch length down quite a ways, and we'll see if we can get a better defined version of these two right here. Okay? All right, we'll turn our machine back on, and we're going to try that stitch just one more time. And maybe I still haven't gone far enough. I could go maybe 1 or 2 clicks more, but I'm right where I'm at, and we'll try it at this stitch length. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Our class 15 J series bobbin is getting a little bit low, but we still have reserve thread left, even after the sewing we've done. And then I did sewing off camera as well. We still have quite a bit of thread left. There we go. Yeah, I'd say that's better, but it's still not as tight as I'd want to get it. I've got a certain vision in my mind of how tight I want to make that stitch. It's definitely better than it was, but we could go further than we went. It's kind of like that last machine that I presented that belonged to Jacob. I wanted to go tighter and tighter and tighter on some of those patterns, and then I went too short on the stitch length where the pattern generation wasn't able to accomplish its sweep. And I got a big ball of thread. Remember that? So I don't want to go too far and jam the machine, but it's definitely a step up from where we were. So let's look at all these stitches that we did on Beverly's machine now, and then we're going to shift over to Mary's machine. Very similar to that. Looks like we've been running about an hour and 40 minutes. 2 hours. Not 2 hours from now. Scare all of you. We'll be done probably in another 20, 25 minutes. So I know all of you get busy, but it's well worth it to see these more contemporary quilting type machines that the ladies over in La Follette, Tennessee just love, and were heartbroken when they stopped working. Now they're seeing these machines and they're like, bring them back, bring them back, bring them back. We're going to put them to work. Okay, here's all the stitching we did in this live stream today on Beverly's model 7318, the Magnolia machine by Janome. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to try to get as close as I can so you can see all of these stitches. They're absolutely drop dead gorgeous. Let's get like this. I'm looking at the camera. I'm looking over my shoulder. There we go. Absolutely lovely stitching. I'm going to sit down and do this because I'm kind of wiggling from side to side. Hold on. There we go. Folks, I don't know what you can see, but I see near perfection. Near perfection. And some of these stitches, especially the ones on the far right side, are incredibly complex stitches, not being generated by a computer program or by a circuit board. They're being generated mechanically. And that's why getting all that old caramelized grease off and getting those components oiled properly is so absolutely essential. So absolutely essential to having a machine operate like this. We don't edit videos. We do them live, and you're seeing the machine operating in real time. In real time. We don't fake it. We make it, right? We don't fake it. We make it. Gorgeous, gorgeous stitching. That's our top stitching. If we turn it over, here's our lock stitching. Just as gorgeous, just as gorgeous. Again, if you put the wrong bobbin in this machine, if you put a standard class 15 bobbin, or if you make the horrible mistake of putting a metal class 15 bobbin in, you are going to have bird's nests on the bottom of these lock stitches. You're going to have absolute uphill battle trying to get that tension to balance. It's not going to balance. You got to use that class 15 J series bobbin with those rounded edges, and then you'll get near perfection like this. That's our lock stitching, folks. Absolutely drop dead gorgeous. Absolutely drop dead gorgeous. Wow. Wow. I'll tell you, Mary's machine is going to have to really work hard to beat Beverly. Beverly's machine has just knocked it out of the ballpark. Just literally knocked it out of the ballpark. So between that beautiful lock stitching and top stitching, there it is. I'm going to declare that Beverly's Magnolia model 7318 has graduated from the workshop. And on top of graduating from the workshop, she has made it look.
That was easy. That was easy.
She's made it look really, really easy. Really, really easy. So congratulations to Beverly, and congratulations to all the ladies at the Senior Center of Campbell County in La Follette, Tennessee, with the Helping Hands program that they do. They've got 2 machines that are going to be coming back to them next week when Patricia brings them back in that super cool SUV. when she brings all those ladies back, they're going to be able to take these fabulous machines back, and hopefully they'll have those other 2 machines with them that I can then give workshop magic to, and also do a live stream and make it look easy.
That was easy.
Yeah, amazing job. I'm going to put this underneath the presser foot, and we're going to go ahead and let this machine relax now. And now we're going to be going over to Mary's machine and put that to the test. Let's put Mary's machine to the test now. All right, let me slide that over. The last time we did a live stream with whatever machine it was, I lose track, we had a drop in our viewers in the middle or near the middle of the live stream. How are we doing right now? How many folks do we have in the live stream? I'm going to go walk over to the laptop. Looks like we have a little bit over 1,430 or so, or something like that. 39. Yeah. Looks like we've got a little bit less than 1,500 that are still with us after almost 2 hours of live streaming. That's fabulous. We're just shy about 12 minutes of 2 hours. And I want to thank all of you. I know all of you get busy. You got things to do. You got places to go. You got people to see, as they say. But I want to thank all of you for your dedication in being a part of this live stream and sticking with it all the way through it, especially during a busy Tuesday, kind of moving towards the middle of the week. And on St. Patrick's Day, you could be somewhere dumping green dye into a river or a lake and getting a $10,000 fine. But instead, you're here at this live stream checking out these amazing Magnolia machines that belong to the Senior Center in Campbell County over in La Folla, Tennessee. A wiser choice and a much cheaper choice, not paying a $10,000 fine. But I know that they still do that in certain places. They add dye to rivers and bodies of water to make them green on St. Patrick's Day. At least they used to do that. I don't know if they still do. Maybe they can't do it anymore. But it used to be pretty interesting to see a river turn green. And it wasn't because of algae or pollution. It would usually turn back, shortly after they dyed it, shortly after. All right, let me put a little bit of music on. Let me wet my whistle. And we will jump into Mary's machine and run it through the same paces that we did Beverly's. And then I'll show you both of those stitch offs in the end. And if you want to vote which one you like better, you can do that. Okay? All right, I'm going to pause the music. This time I'm going to hold this microphone very, very carefully. I'll just move the microphone over by Beverly's machine, so you'll hopefully be able to hear me better when I'm all the way over by Mary's machine. We're kind of doing a dance today. You kind of see my setup right here. I moved the microphone over that I dropped before. Thank goodness it's okay. And we're going to jump into Mary's now and run it through the same type of paces that we did Beverly's. All right, so that's Mary's machine right there. Yeah. And then again, maybe we'll do this a little backwards. I don't know. Maybe we'll do this backwards. I had that material kind of crooked. I'm going to get it straight so we at least start straight, even if I don't continue straight. So the lay of the land on Mary's machine is going to be the same as the one that we just saw with Beverly. The only thing I didn't show on the front of here that I probably should have is the reverse. This is our reverse button right here. You just push it down and you hold it down while you're wanting to sew in reverse and then release it when you want to resume forward. The other thing I didn't show you is that if you take off this bed by just sliding it off, on the rear right bottom of the free arm is the feed dog drop. And you'll simply slide that. And the feed dog drop mechanism, as I serviced it in these Magnolias, is a little bit of a challenge where it has the potential as the machine gets dirtier and dirtier to jam up. So if the ladies don't need to drop the feed dogs, I would encourage them not to drop the feed dogs on these models. I've cleaned the mechanism, I serviced it, I greased it, I oiled it. But as the machines get more use and they drop the feed dogs, they may stay in the down position. And then they'll be calling me on the phone saying, hey, do you and Susie want to come to La Follette, Tennessee? Yeah, we would do that for you, ladies. We would do that absolutely. Never been to La Follette. I'd love to check it out, actually, but not to service the machine, maybe just to visit the senior center and the Helping Hands program, learn more about that. And then we could feature that on this channel, along with showing the ladies operating some of the machines that were serviced over here in Kentucky. That would be fun. Seeing their operation there over in La Follette, Tennessee. We'll see if Patricia's open to that, see if the ladies are open to that. Maybe that could be a follow-up live stream. We may shoot it as a video and release it as a video because I don't know what their Wi-Fi is over there, if it's fast enough to support the upload that we need to do a live stream. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. But at any rate, let's jump into Mary's machine now. Let's jump into Mary's machine and do some of these fun stitches. Let's see here. I'll start over on, why don't we do that J stitch in the blue series that we did on Beverly's machine. We'll do that one first, the J series one. So I'm going to take our adjuster up here, our stitch selector, move it all the way to J. And you notice again what happens to the needle while I'm moving it. It'll even do it with the machine off. See how that needle's moving all over the place? That's why you need to make sure your needle is always clear of the material, right? Make sure your needle is always clear of the material when you're changing the stitch selector, the stitch length, or the stitch width, okay? All right, so I've set it on J, and now I'm going to adjust my stitch length way down like we did on Beverly's machine. Adjust it way down, and we'll see if we can start with that same stitch that we did 3 times with 3 different versions or flavors with different stitch lengths on Beverly's machines. We'll start with that one and do it once on Mary's machine, okay? All right, here we go. Let me get my material straight. There we go. I love how smooth both Beverly's and Mary's machine run. They're just silky, silky smooth. Silky, silky smooth. All right, let me give that a clip. Move that back. And again, any of you that are watching in the shadows right now, let me encourage you that when you're ready, we'd love to have you step out and join the live chat. I know that there are some folks that have watched, hold on one second here. There's some folks that have watched this channel for years. They've watched this channel for years, and they've sat in the shadows. They've sat in the shadows the whole time. For years, they've been watching this channel, and they sat in the chat in the channel, the shadows before they finally step into the light, and they join the live chat. We've had them share that with us numerous times. People from this country, the United States, and also from around the world. We've had some people from France and Australia, Switzerland, Sweden. The list goes on of places that people watch our channel. They've sat in the shadows for years before they finally felt like, okay, I'm going to step out and introduce myself. So don't wait that long. Join us hopefully sooner than that, okay? Join us sooner than that. We'd love to make you feel welcome. So we just did that stitch, and we got a similar result. I'll just show it to you like this. I'll shut off the light. A similar result. So we can only get that pattern so tight. We can only get that pattern so tight, and that's what we got to work with. So that's okay. All right. Let's move down now. I think we'll go backwards. We'll go top down. So we're going to do some of those. Pink stitches now. Actually, we could do one more blue stitch. We'll do this other stitch we did on Beverly's machine, the eye stitch. My cord is all the way to the end. That's why I'm not getting closer. So we're going to be doing this stitch right here next. That stitch right there on Mary's machine. Almost looks like an EKG, doesn't it? We'll do that EKG stitch next. Yep, the eye stitch. We'll make that one kind of short too. I won't make it quite as short as the other one. All right, let's give this one a try. And then we'll move into some of the pink stretch stitch options that we have on these machines. Now you can see with these stitches in the blue series, all these stitches in the blue are so short. All of these are going to be needle movement generated. They're not going to be using feed dog movement with that tri motion. Soon as we go down to here, we're going to be operating that tri motion. And so you'll see me slow the machine down a little bit so that it has time to respond to those more complex movements of the machine with the feed dogs and also with the needle movement as well. All right. Yeah, that's a fun stitch. I like that EKG stitch too. It's a fun stitch to do. We're just going to keep going down the list. Now we're going to move into, actually, I'll do it. You know what? I'll do one more stitch in the blue series machine. I'll do the H as well. That's kind of like the mountain stitch that I talk about. Hopefully you can see that, the mountain stitch, the H stitch. We're going to do that on Mary's machine because we did not do it on Beverly's. Then Mary can say, ha, ha, ha. Scott didn't do the mountain stitch on yours, but he did it on mine. Ha, 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 ha. All right, we're going to do the mountain stitch now. And I will leave our stitch length right about where it is. I just bumped it one to the left to make it a little bit tighter. So let's do the mountain stitch on Mary's machine now. And yeah, and then we'll keep going down the list. Yeah. Well, I hope all of you are having a good Tuesday and a good St. Patrick's Day. And I hope you're learning that some of these more contemporary machines can really surprise us when they're serviced properly and they're brought back to greatness, what they're able to accomplish for us. And the versatility and the choice that they give us, the versatility and choice stitch options that we might not get from some of our vintage machines. Even if we have a 401A or a 401 with all of those built-in cams and the extra cams that we can bring into the equation as well, there are still some of these contemporary or more contemporary machines that can generate stitches that our vintage ones can't. And it doesn't hurt to have one of them in the lineup, depending on the project that you're looking to accomplish and the options that you want to be able to incorporate into that project as well. Okay, so now I'm going to move into the stretch series, which means I've got to now move our stitch length that I'm pointing at on Beverly's machine. I've got to move it into that stretch stitch mode on Mary's machine, right? Got to move it into that stretch stitch mode. So I'm going to keep turning it counterclockwise till I get all the way to that SS setting. And I'm going to go a little bit further so that it's on the negative side of that S. And now we'll go from top down. We're going to go ahead and do this stitch number C first, stitch letter C, I should say. Stitch letter C, then we're going to do stitch D, the real complex one. We're going to do E, F, G, H. I had to look over my shoulder to see if I was pointed in the right direction. I, and then lastly, we'll do J to wrap up Mary's machine. Okay, so we'll start all the way over on C. So I've got to adjust my stitch selector back to C again. And again, my needle is clear of the material. I'm going to leave my stitch width on top right here. Leave my stitch width set at the widest point on number 5. My stitch length is going to be controlled by the SS range between negative and positive. And yeah, we're ready to go. Let's go ahead and do this first of the stretch stitches, and then we'll work our way all the way down to the bottom. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's see if Mary's machine can keep up with Beverly's. Here we go. And notice I'm slowing the machine down because we've got the movement of the feed dogs and the movement of the needle. I'm not racing. I'm giving that machine a chance to execute those very, very complex movements. There we go. The other thing I'll tell you about a benefit of some of these slightly newer machines that have only been around for a couple of decades is they operate most of the time with an electronic foot controller, like I showed you. I'll show you Mary's foot controller. It's identical to Beverly's. I also added those non-skid pads to the bottom of Mary's foot controller as well. But the benefit that this one gives you is that being electronic, you can sew at slower speeds and the foot controller does not get hot. If you try that on a Bakelite style one, like would go with the machine that's going to be going to Stephen in New Mexico, or the foot controller you might have on your featherweight, if you try to sew at too slow of a pace for sustained duration on one of these machines that has an older style Bakelite foot controller that has those carbon discs in it, it's going to build up that heat. It's going to get really hot. It might even fail. And the same thing can happen with Husqvarna foot controllers like I've talked about. I had our friend from Texas that blew one out shortly after I sent the machine because she was trying to operate it very, very slow instead of using that slow gear on that Husqvarna machine. So just be aware of that. Electronic foot controllers, they can give you a huge advantage for slow sewing. And some people will actually convert their vintage foot controller to an electronic one so that they have that added advantage. And this foot controller, unlike the one on Jacob's, actually has a rating of up to 1.5 amps. And with a 0.6 amp motor, it's going to give you a lot of control over speed with these Magnolia machines because the foot controller has such a large range and an amperage tolerance. It's going to give you a way to really, really meter and manage that motor hugely compared to some of the racing we were doing with Jacob's machine on that 328K. So always make sure your foot controller is going to be rated higher than your motor. If you can't do that, then at least get it equal to your motor. But again, the Janome people do it right. They're very smart, and they set up a foot controller twice the amperage tolerance of the motor that's in Mary and Beverly's machine. So we're able to slow it down almost to a snail's pace and not sacrifice anything. The ladies are going to love those new pads. I put it down on the floor and I tried to scoot it a little bit. It won't move. It won't move. All right. Let me get this clear. We just did that stitch row on Mary's machine. So we've had some crazy weather, haven't we? We've had crazy weather all the way across the country. I think they said pretty much from the Canadian border all the way down to Florida, So even our Floridian friends like Emma and others that live in Florida, Bill O'Rourke. We haven't seen Bill for a real long time. I hope he's okay. And we haven't seen Paula Noella's either. She's from West Palm Beach, Florida. But even the Florida people got hit by some sort of weird weather, either high winds, rain, maybe even a little bit of snow. So, yeah. doing some flexing to show that it's still in control. Okay, so we've done this stitching on Mary so far, and it's done a brilliant job. I'll shut the light off just temporarily. Yeah, let's move through the rest of these stitches, and then we'll look at all these stitches together, and I'll put the stitch offs in front of the machines, and you can, if you want to vote which machine did better, Beverly's or Mary's, you can certainly do that. All right, I'm going to move to stitch letter D now. Stitch letter D is going to be this stitch right here, the very, very complex one, just above my finger. And then we'll move our way all the way down to the bottom. All right. Here we go. I've got to put some music on pretty quick. The workshop is so quiet. I've got to get some noise in here. Maybe I can hum. I could hum, huh? All right, here we go. Just double checking my settings. Yep. All right. That's probably our most complex stitch, our tri-motion stitch that we can do on one of these machines. And we've done a stitch similar to this on other machines. It's a very, very tricky stitch to do. There's a great opportunity with a stitch like this, especially if you sew too fast, to have skip stitching, because not only is the needle moving, the feed dogs are moving, and the hook is trying to keep time with the feed dogs and keep time with the needle. And sometimes if you sew too fast, it can throw that hook into a little bit of a tizzy. All right, let's continue to move down. We've got our next stitch, which is going to be our stitch E like echo. I'll show you that to you on Beverly, so I don't have to stretch the camera too far. We're going to be doing that one right there. And then we'll work our way down the rest of these stitches after that. Let me put on a little bit of music. You've heard these machines running silky smooth, so a little bit of music shouldn't be too distracting, hopefully. And you know what? In honor of the fact that it's St. Patrick's Day today, I'm going to move away from the Japanese music, and I'll put on a little bit of Irish music. A little bit of Irish music. Once I find it. I hope I didn't delete it. There it is. I'm just continuing to mow through. So enjoy the Irish music. We're almost to the finish line with Mary's Machine. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pause that. So we've gone through all of the stitching. on Mary's machine and Beverly's machine. I don't know how I ended up with so much extra space. Apparently, I made these a lot tighter on Mary's machine than I did on Beverly's machine. But I'm going to go ahead and show you both of the sew-offs. And then if you want to vote, if you feel like you have one that you like better than the other, you can certainly let that be known. See, I can put them right about in the middle, maybe. Right about there. Move my microphone over. I better use my clippers to hold these together. All right, I'm going to grab the camera. I'm going to get down on my knees so I can get a good angle on these stitches. Actually, I can just I'll put the stitch offs next to the machine that did them. That would probably be a little bit better. Okay. I just don't want to cover up Magnolia or I'll get a nasty note from Janome. Why'd you cover up Magnolia? Okay. So this again, the machine on the left, as you're looking at it here, is Beverly's model 7318, the Magnolia. Yeah, beautiful flower. Yeah. We're going to look at her stitching and then I'll show you Mary's stitching over here. And if you have a vote, cast your vote. If you don't want to cast a vote, don't cast a vote. Okay. So a little bit of Irish music as we're looking at the stitching. Again, this is Beverly's. Then we're going to move over and we're going to look at Mary's. I think my cord will reach that far. Yeah, just barely. I may have to move Mary's over a little bit further. Okay. A little bit of Irish music on St. Patrick's Day. And we'll look at Beverly's and we'll look at Mary's, and you can cast a vote in the live chat if you want, okay? So again, you're looking at Beverly's right now, and this is the lock stitching on Beverly's. Then I'll flip Mary's over when we get over there, okay? I love this song. I'm going to keep it going. But I'm going to move the microphone away from Beverly's machine. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I want to send a special thank you to Patricia for bringing the ladies in with their machines, and for the ladies trusting their machines to me in the workshop here. I'm looking forward to bringing the other machines back to greatness as well that are currently at the Senior Center over in Campbell, Kentucky, La Follette, Tennessee. I'll come into the shot as well. So again, it opens your eyes a little bit when all of a sudden you see machines like this that are relatively contemporary machines. This series wasn't introduced until the 2000s, so about 2.5 decades ago. Very contemporary compared to a vintage machine from the 1950s, 40s, 30s, 20s, etc. But they have a lot of the same characteristics of quality. The way the Janome people build them, they build them to last. And even in this series and later series, they're continuing to build quality into their machines the way it should be. They didn't cut the corners like some of the other makers have. So if you're looking to add a machine that might give you a little bit more diversity in stitching, might give you a different option to execute certain projects that you want, don't be hesitant at all to look at the Janome series of machines, including the Magnolias. They do a fabulous job, as the ladies in La Follette, Tennessee will attest. These machines went through more than 2,000 masks during COVID, probably hundreds of lap quilts. And with workshop magic, they're as good as new. I didn't have to replace a single part on either one of these machines. I had to do some fine work on the bobbin cases where they were marred a little bit, but no parts. And these machines have been running at a pace that would kill a lot of the contemporary Singer and Brother machines in a heartbeat. So Janome does it right since 1921. They've been building quality, and even today they are as well. So God bless you all. Thank you to the leadership team for taking such good care of the family. Thank you to all the seniors out in La Follette, Tennessee, at the Senior Center in Campbell County. Yeah, Campbell County in Tennessee. I'm still learning the area. All right. Take care. God bless.